if you're unaware, the governor of Michigan has declared Flint's water, quote, restored. As I've told you in multiple videos this week, that is based on BS science. It's not based on reality, but the governor doesn't want to pay anymore for the water pods in Flint, so he shut down the water pods in Flint. This is free water bottles for impoverished, poisoned people. Let's remember, they've been poisoned. And the governor is declaring, based on federal testing and state testing, that the water is safe. Well, I'm here to tell you, because I've been working on a major piece on that, that's not true. That science that he's using is total bull pucky. Trying not to curse. So you have a governor who, while giving Nestle, they just allowed Nestle to increase their extraction of water from the remaining fresh water in Michigan. They went from 200 gallons a minute to 400 gallons a minute. So that governor is allowing Nestle to do that, basically for no money, but shut down free water to the people of Flint. Sound a little backwards to you? So while that is going on, if you remember, while I was at the Young Turks last year, I was covering a town hall in Flint. I believe it was in April of 2017. And at that town hall, residents were asking questions up at the microphone of their government. They were expressing anger and frustration because at that time it was 3 years since the water crisis. And they still have not had the pipes changed. They still have insane medical costs and illnesses that are not being covered by the federal government for the poisoning perpetrated against them by the federal government. So 6 residents that night were arrested for the crime of voicing their frustration, It was held in a church. There were religious undertones of that arrest that, you're not allowed to cuss at a church and all this stuff. One woman went while being arrested for, again, just speaking out too loudly in frustration of her poisoning and the lack of a response from the government. She had bruises all across her left arm. Her husband was arrested for basically defending his wife while she was rammed into a wall by a police officer. Another gentleman, he was 19, he was arrested for the crime of saying, literally verbally, just saying to the police, "This is fascism." Right after he said that, he was cuffed. Another woman was arrested for the crime. She opened a door, and I guess the door accidentally slammed in a police officer, and he arrested her. So I covered that story while I was there at the town hall, and then I covered it after because Genesee County, Flint is a city, part of Genesee County, was basically holding over these 6 people's heads possible felony charges. So fortunately, those felony charges were not filed, and it was just announced the other day by the Michigan ACLU that 4 of those 6 residents that were arrested have filed charges against the city of Flint as well as the police department. So I interviewed one of the gentlemen yesterday who was one of the residents arrested. His name is Tony Palladino. He and his wife, Leah Palladino, were arrested for the crime of speaking out too loudly against their government. His wife, Leah Palladino, is the woman I was just referring to who had bruises all across her arm. And I wanted to talk to Tony, tell me about the lawsuit, why you are filing this, and also if he believes the governor's claims that the water is now safe. Tony, if you look at him, he kind of reminds you of Santa Claus. So here's my interview with Tony Palladino. This seems to me the police department there and the politicians there have basically tried to intimidate the residents since this all happened. And that's what was going on at that town hall. When residents, peacefully fight back, they get, they kind of get bossed around or thrown in jail. Is that kind of, part of what this is about, to make sure they know that's not okay?
Well, apparently you were there that day too, George, but it seems like, we had that church rocking. The major point here is that why are we, Mayor, having these meetings in these churches and you're taking us under a religious rule? It's bad enough that we can't speak out in public without, let alone going to city council. It's atrocious now to go to a city council meeting and even speak up, because now you have a cop on you right now. don't like what we're saying, it is our right to say that. That whole setup at the church just was funky from the get. It just wasn't right.
And you know, I get the feeling that if this happened in Grand Rapids or Ann Arbor, they'd be treating residents quite differently.
Well, yeah, everybody's saying it's a black thing, which I'm not saying it's not, but let's not forget, there's a lot of civil rights, and even the civil rights that were the poster child for this disaster. What the hell good is that doing us? That didn't bring no money. That didn't put no water in any of our mouths. That didn't fix our pipes. That didn't fix our homes or our health. Let's not forget, there's certain levels that are just, or ages that are not getting taken care of. They totally destroyed us 2014, 15, 16, 17, and now they're just now talking about putting a registry together. So we lost 3-4 years of people's health care or health and problems. And now they're shutting down the pods. We had to go to Lansing and raise a ruckus more or less to open this up still again. There's so much being pushed under. It's crazy. It is one big scam.
And do you buy the governor's declaration that the water is, quote, restored?
George, let me tell you something about the governor saying that. He don't bathe in here. He don't drink in here. And I'm even fighting close friends and relatives telling me that, oh, everything's fine. Well, come on in. I'll show you the balls of hairs we're still pulling out the sink. I'll let you hear my lungs. Just look at the blisters. We still have them. And like I said, I can't speak for anybody else. Other than the fact that most of the city will tell you this water is not good enough to consume, let alone pay $1 for it. I wouldn't pay $1 for this shit. They got to get $120 to $150. People are $1,500, $3,000 in debt. They get to shut their house down and then kick them out and take it. Where the hell do we live, man? Man, this water's not good. They can say all they want as far as the lead in the copper. You did a great job there, Mr. Edwards. Let's talk about the chemicals that GM, yes, I said GM, has been dumping in this river for hundreds of years. You have DuPont on that river. You can't just put 7 layers of dirt over this shit and call it a park. That's what they did down at Kettering. No, this water's not good.
And I don't know what rationale, both morally or from a government point of view, to give Nestle, what are they, allowing them 400 gallons a minute now?
Yeah, they increased it from 2 to 4, I think. 250 to 4.
Yet they closed down the pods.
Right. And it's the same thing. It's like, here, let's shove this pipe in your ass, Flint. You know? You couldn't even give it a clean hand if you had to. You just had to pour it right by it. It was a raw rip-up, and I honestly feel that Governor Snyder was in for this just to make sure that Nestle's passed. Because this isn't a yesterday plan. They've been putting a roll over Michigan's eyes for years now about that Nestle's corporation.
Right.
And let's not forget, the old boys flying over Sweden all the time. They need to make it right, Jordan. It's not good the way Nestle got away with that shit. And the truth of the matter is, how do you let a company in here like that anyways? What does that give to the residents, or even to the state? You know, I got to say this too. Everybody's saying Flint this and Flint that. Damn it, people, you better open your eyes. This isn't Flint. This is Michigan. This is all the way from across the UP through that damn stupid-ass pipeline all the way down into here. They are poisoning this whole state. And they're taking our assets. And we're paying for water that runs around us every day. And they're killing us.
And, you know, it seems to me it's getting no national media attention, but one thing getting lost is residents are still sick and getting worse. I mean,
all of us are still sick. Like right now, I'm going in Thursday. I need to get my stomach taken care because I couldn't afford to even have an ultrasound. And I got to go in now for a gas or whatever. You're running pipes down my throat to find out what's going on because I've doubled over. And I have for the last 2 years. And my eyes and Leah's balls, and we just not good. And I don't want to sound like an old man crying while kids are falling by the wayside. Even the schools aren't even being taken care of. The students are falling apart. You know, look, we was at that hearing or that Lansing, you know, when they were down on the floor, and it was just terrible, man. They were talking about genocide. The Jewish guy come in and had a day set aside, and I was thinking, wow. I mean, I'm not trying to compare this, you know, to the Holocaust or whatever, but no way is this not much different. I mean, it's like genocide. It's terrible, man. And then when you can't speak up, you get kicked out. You know, you got to go have the street water, and it's frustrating. We're angry. We got politicians that are running this whole situation, and they don't even look you in the eyes anymore. I can't take it, brother. Me and me is at wit's end.
And the recently re-elected mayor, Karen Weaver, she's supposedly going to Lansing to try and convince the governor to keep the pods open. What do you say to that?
And go. Trip number 348. How are you doing with that? Here's what I say to Karen Weaver. Like I said a long time ago, Mrs. Mayor, if you would have never paid your water bill back then, when you tried to convince your residents that we needed to keep the funding from the state here, had you never, Miss Weaver, paid your water bill, some of us probably still would have been following your lead. As of right now, your trips to Lansing, and I'm not speaking for everybody, your trips to Lansing doesn't hold shit. It doesn't hold shit. Maybe closing the pod down all day. You're one person. I'll give you credit for that for trying, but you haven't done nothing with it so far. They keep blocking you for some reason. Either them or someone around them.
So that was Tony Palladino. He is a resident of Flint. He actually ran for mayor. There was a recall election for the mayor of Flint. That happened in November. He was one of, I think, 16 or 17 people who ran. He's what I would call, you know, an original Flintstone. I've interviewed him a bunch of times in Flint, as well as his wife. And you could kind of hear in his voice that he's beaten down. He's beaten down. And that's what I get from a lot of residents I've spoken to. I still speak with residents on the ground there. They're just exhausted, and mentally and physically just beaten down. Because, I mean, wouldn't you be? After April 25th is 4 years. 4 years since the water switch. They switched from the Detroit water system to the Flint River. And these people, they get sicker and sicker. Their medical bills get higher and higher. And there's no real relief. And you have the governor who, frankly, presided over their poisoning, who's really done nothing for them, who's now hoisting forward science that my reporting is showing is very, very questionable, to close down free water bottles, which puts more lives at danger. Flint is 45% impoverished. I'm sure the number for underemployment makes it much. Most people don't have the money to go buy stacks and stacks of bottled water. So now they're going to be forced to drink through the tap water. Even though it's filtered, studies have shown the filtering does not stop. The filtering does not stop all lead from seeping in to the water. The filters do not stop all lead from seeping into the water. The filters go bad very quickly. The filters also can breed bacteria. This isn't my opinion. This is research and studies that have been done. So they're basically drinking water with filters on that go bad, don't stop lead, and create bacteria. And you have residents like Tony who tell me he still showers and his eyes are burning while he showers, or people get rashes while they shower. But they say totally safe to bathe and drink. And why this is so important, and I always say this, but I have to repeat it, this isn't just about Flint. If you think this is just about Flint, you're mistaken. There's water contamination happening all over this country, but it's not just water contamination. If something happens in your neighborhood, if people get sick or something bad happens to you or your family, if the government is allowed to do what they're doing to Flint, That's the blueprint for how they're going to handle other situations elsewhere. If the government is allowed to poison its people and then not actually fix the problem, they're never going to fix the problem completely, because lead poisoning mostly produces permanent damage, cognitive damage, autoimmune damage. You're going to get cancers. Most of these people, bone problems, lead stunts bone growth. But if the government is allowed to poison its people and then is not held accountable, uses fake science to declare, mission accomplished in Flint, we're closing down the water pods, that's not America, or what we claim America is. That's not America. And Tony, his wife, and several other residents were arrested there because there's been an intimidation. There's been an intimidation attempt to intimidate the residents so that they don't fight back, peacefully fight back, so that they don't protest, so that they don't speak out against the really out-of-control police department in Flint and the out-of-control government. You know what? The least you could do for citizens, you sat there while they were poisoned, you told them nothing was wrong, is listen to them yell at you. You're lucky that's all you're having to deal with. So I'll keep in touch with Tony. I'll update you on this lawsuit. Again, it's 4 residents that were arrested. There were 6 in total arrested. 4 of them are part of the plaintiffs. They have sued the city of Flint. They have sued the Flint Police Department, basically stating, their First Amendment and Fourth Amendment rights were impinged upon. So I will follow up on that.